Another topic which could get, I suppose, tiresome. Well, actually, I have said a lot about it. I can't quite believe that some people think there is a massive abundance of men who choose the alias of Dick Oakley. I've only known of two. First coincidence. Both of them kept their surnames and changed only their forenames. And they changed the forename to Dick, which bore no resemblance whatsoever to either of their original forenames. So we have two men who chose that alias. Apparently we do. I really don't believe there are that many more, if any, unless it's some kind of underworld criminal code. Possible. But the coincidence would go so much further, wouldn't it? First of all, why did I go looking for a death entry for Dick Oakley, given that my father, whose alias was Dick Oakley, had died in 1994, and I went looking in 2010 to 11. I would say 2011, simply because I found it in 2011 and got the certificate in July 2011, the death certificate. Now, I wrote my book Deadly Daddy in 2007, and I can prove that, although I only uploaded it to cyberspace. It was not published as a book. I can prove when I wrote it, because it's dated on my computer, 2007. Had I gone looking for a death entry for Dick Oakley in 2007, I wouldn't have found it. And the reason that I wouldn't have found it is that it takes, I think, around 9 years between the death or whatever else it is, birth, marriage, to go on public record, to go on microfiche, which was where I found it at the National Library in Aberystwyth. Had I gone looking in 2007, I would not have found it, because the second alias, Dick Oakley, died in 2000. 9 years had not elapsed, only 7 had. Also, it hadn't occurred to me to look for it at that time. Not really. I don't know when it did occur to me. I'd always felt that, and I have said this, my father, in his alias as Dick Oakley, had not been written off, and he hadn't. He hadn't, not on his death certificate, not on his gravestone. So call it intuition that I went looking. So that's the first thing. The fact that I found it, I consider little less than a miracle, quite honestly. I would have been stunned if I had merely found a death entry for Dick Oakley. But I specifically found a death entry for a man with the alias of Dick Oakley, and the death informant had made it very clear that it was an alias. And the death certificate makes it very clear that it was an alias. I hope I haven't only just uploaded this today, having said it last night or something. I may have, because I'm finding that I have to repeat this over and over to get the point across, and I'm sorry to do this. Okay. So, I also find that this man, with the same alias as my father, died in a registration district called Dacorum, which happens to be an area in which my father worked and from which he wrote letters home. Of course, I got the death certificate. So far, we have, you could almost call it a coincidence, couldn't you, that I went looking for the entry in the first place? But we have certainly the coincidence that there were two. Does that look like an F or sign? We had two men with the alias Dick Oakley. Right. I then get the death certificate, and that is where you could knock me down with a feather, personally, because here we go. He died on the 6th anniversary of Fiona Green's death. He died on the Wednesday, the 16th February 2000. She died on Wednesday, the 16th February 1994. So there I have my second coincidence. This alias Dick Oakley, the man with the same alias as my father, died on the anniversary of Fiona Green's death. And why was I so interested in Fiona Green's death in the first place? Because my alias Dick Oakley, my father, had told me about it ahead of schedule. He told me she was dead before anyone else knew that she was dead, and I have said this now a number of times before on uploaded videos, I'm sorry to say. I've lost count of the coincidences already, actually. Wednesday, the 16th of February, for both deaths, and a Dick Oakley, an alias Dick Oakley, connected to it at both ends, so to speak. Right, coincidence, next coincidence, I have lost count. Margaret Ann Oakley, death informed. Well, actually, she was Margaret Ann Palmer. But as she was his daughter, she was obviously born Margaret Ann Oakley, and Margaret Ann Oakley was my grandmother's name. And she was the death informant, she could have left out the Ann, just Margaret Oakley. Very specifically, she was Margaret Ann Oakley. You don't have to include your middle name. I have uploaded this quite recently, haven't I? I hope not within the last 24 hours. His profession, in the building trade, his disease, it just goes on and on and on. The two Dick Oakleys, the two men with the alias of Dick Oakley, are tied to each other by the death of Fiona Green. And had it not been for my Dick Oakley telling me that she was dead, at a time when he should not have been aware of the fact, because no one else was, I would have left everything well alone. And I have to say my state of mind would have been an awful lot better for the last 9 years. My peace of mind has, of course, gone totally. So, to end this screed that will have people switching off, I'm afraid. God, not again, as you go over this again. Yes, I am, because I'm trying to make my point. To end this screed, if you know of a man with the alias of Dick Oakley, whose original surname was Oakley, so he hasn't changed his surname, he's only changed his forename, and he's changed it to Dick, and he was never called Richard, please let me know, and I will write it off to coincidence, and not before.